No ocean, no oil, no empire. And yet every dictator on earth sends their money to the same place, Switzerland. A landlocked country in the Alps that somehow convinced the entire world to trust it with their deepest secrets, their dirtiest money, their most dangerous fortunes. But here's what nobody tells you. Switzerland wasn't always neutral, wasn't always safe, and it definitely wasn't always rich. So how does a country with nothing become the place that holds everything? The answer is darker than you think. Europe, 1500s. Massive empires in every direction. France, the Holy Roman Empire. Italy tearing itself apart. And in the middle of all of it, a bunch of poor mountain valleys nobody wanted. That was Switzerland. Not even a real country, just farmers and herders speaking different languages, barely trusting each other, trying to survive winters that could kill you. But they had something the empires needed: mountains. Not just any mountains. A natural fortress, the Alps. Anyone trying to cross them bleeds armies, loses supply lines, watches their invasion freeze to death at 10,000 feet. And the people living in those valleys, they knew every pass, every hidden route, every ambush point. So the empires made a calculation. Conquering Switzerland would cost more than it was worth. But hiring the Swiss, that was different. Here's where it gets brutal. Switzerland became Europe's favorite mercenaries. The deadliest soldiers money could buy. They fought for whoever paid the most. France one year, the Pope the next. It didn't matter. No loyalty except to the contract. And they were terrifying, disciplined, unbeatable. For 200 years, Swiss soldiers bled on every battlefield in Europe. They died for causes they didn't believe in, all so their families could survive another winter. But then 1515 happened, a place called Marignano. The Swiss, undefeated for generations, walked straight into a slaughter. The French king brought cannons, new tactics, modern war, and the Swiss lost. Thousands dead in a single afternoon. The myth shattered. So Switzerland made a choice that would change everything. If they couldn't dominate the battlefield, they'd dominate something else. They became neutral, not because they loved peace, because they were smart. Think about it. Every country in Europe was constantly at war. Alliances shifted overnight. Enemies became friends. Friends became enemies. Trust was impossible. But Switzerland didn't pick sides, which meant Switzerland was the only place where everyone could do business, even with each other's enemies. French gold? Safe. Austrian secrets? Safe. Stolen Italian art? Safe. Because no matter who won the war, Switzerland would still be there. But neutrality doesn't make you rich. Plenty of countries stayed neutral and stayed broke. Switzerland had something else, something that would turn them into the world's vault. And the timing? Deliberately perfect. Middle of the Great Depression. Every government on Earth is desperately hunting for money. Switzerland passes a law that changes everything. Banking secrecy becomes a federal crime to violate. If a Swiss banker reveals client information, even to another government, they go to prison. Let that sink in. At the exact moment when the world is collapsing financially, Switzerland builds a wall around its banks that nobody can break. But here's the part they don't mention in the tourism ads. There was someone who really needed to hide money in 1934. Someone with a lot of it. Nazi Germany. During World War II, Switzerland didn't just stay neutral. It became the Nazis' banker. Gold stolen from conquered countries. Wealth looted from Jewish families sent to camps. Art, diamonds, cash taken from people who were being murdered. All of it flowed into Swiss banks, laundered, cleaned, turned into money the Nazis could use to keep the war going. And Switzerland knew. They absolutely knew. They claimed neutrality, but neutrality meant profiting from genocide. Then the war ended. Allied forces demanded the Nazi gold back. Families of victims demanded their stolen wealth. Switzerland said no. Banking secrecy, they said, client confidentiality, Swiss law, And because Switzerland hadn't fought because they were neutral, nobody could force them to open the vaults. So the money stayed, most of it, absorbed into the system, lost in numbered accounts with no names. But here's the twist. That dark reputation, hiding Nazi gold even after the Nazis lost, didn't destroy Switzerland. It made them stronger, because every dictator on Earth saw the same thing. If Switzerland protected Nazi money after the Nazis fell, then Switzerland would protect anyone's money, no matter how dirty, no matter where it came from. That became the real product, not secrecy, certainty. The certainty that your money would be safe even if your regime collapsed, even if you were overthrown. Even if you ended up in a cell somewhere, your wealth would still be waiting, untouchable. By the 1970s, Swiss banks held more foreign money than anywhere else on Earth. Oil money from Middle Eastern dictators, blood diamonds from African warlords, cartel cash from Latin America, embezzled billions from Soviet officials, all hidden behind the same wall that protected the Nazis. But then the world started changing. The 2000s arrived. The US threatened sanctions. Europe demanded transparency. Whistleblowers leaked names. Suddenly, Switzerland's greatest weapon, secrecy, looked like a problem. So what did Switzerland do? They adapted, like they always do. They loosened the laws, just enough. Signed agreements with foreign governments, just the minimum. Prosecuted a few bankers for show. But here's what didn't change. The money kept flowing, because Switzerland had built something more valuable than secrecy. They'd built a system, so complex, so layered, so woven into global finance that even when accounts are technically visible, nobody can actually track where the money goes. Today, Switzerland holds over $2 trillion in foreign wealth, more than most countries' entire economies. Money that crosses borders, changes hands, disappears into funds and shell companies that lead nowhere. And the Swiss take their cut. Every transaction, every account, every secret. That's the genius. They don't need to hide money anymore. The system is the hiding place. So why does any of this matter? Because Switzerland proved something the world didn't want to admit. You don't need resources to get rich. Don't need an empire to be powerful. Don't even need to be ethical. You just need to be useful to the people who matter, the people with power, the people with money they need to hide. And Switzerland became so useful, so indispensable, that the world decided to look away. Ignore the Nazi gold. Overlook the dictator accounts. Pretend neutrality is the same as innocence. Here's the real question. If a country can build its entire economy on helping the worst people in the world hide their wealth and face zero real consequences, what does that tell you about the system? Switzerland didn't break the rules. They understood them better than anyone. The rules aren't about right or wrong. They're about leverage, about knowing what the powerful need and giving it to them, no matter the cost. The mountains are still there. The banks are still open. The vaults are still full. And right now, this very second, somewhere in a quiet valley, another deposit is being made. Another name is being hidden. Another fortune locked away. Because the world's vault doesn't just hold money, it holds a mirror. And most of us would rather not look into it.